friends, send them the live where we're on it. Please feel free to do so people can chime in. So let's get started.
Hi.
Hi, Shabria. How are
How
you?
are you?
Good. You're looking nice and fierce on this Friday
Oh,
evening.
thank you.
So, before we get into your story, I want you to just take a couple moments. I'm going to be watching the clock. I know this hour goes by really fast.
Yeah.
We got a lot to dive into, but I just want you to take a couple moments to introduce yourself and what it is you do briefly, and we'll make sure we get back into, all of your projects and things of that sort at
Awesome.
the end as well. So,
Awesome.
go ahead.
Awesome. Hi, ladies. I'm Shabria Shine. So I'm an author, speaker, and a singer. And like you said briefly, I have a Single and Satisfied movement, which is an online ministry group for single Christian women. And I'm also a blogger and a Christian singer and a speaker in a nutshell. So hello, ladies. So nice to
In
meet you.
in a nutshell. And you also have done a little acting because you've
Oh, well, yeah.
done some things as
Yes.
well.
Also act and dance as well. Yes.
Okay, so let's get started. You have a very interesting relationship story.
Yes.
I don't care who I've talked to over the years, whether they are married, single, divorced, they always have, some good insight, perspective, opinions, or thoughts
Yeah.
on relationships. So I just want to get into it tonight. So we can start off, I guess, with you telling us about your, I guess, relationship history leading up to you meeting your husband. So we'll take it piece by piece, but tell us your experience with relationships over the years.
Okay. So, of course, I'm going to try to make a long story short. But basically, I would say maybe in my early 20s, probably like 21, I wanted to get married young. Like, I was always the type of woman that kind of wanted the one guy. I didn't want to be with a whole bunch of guys. So I wanted to get married young. So even being a Christian at that age, like I was dating. And honestly, y'all, I had a lot of failed relationships. Probably counterfeits. The Lord was showing me warning signs. I just wanted to be married. I wasn't listening. Like, all the drama, right? And I just really wanted to be married at that time. And it got to a point where I had a huge, major heartbreak where, I was engaged to be married, and like a month before the wedding, like it was called off. And the person ended up marrying my friend, like not long after that. And it was like devastating. And I was like, you know what, Lord, I am tired of trying to do this thing myself. Like, I give up, because there were warning signs, but I kind of pushed them off. I want to be honest, in hindsight, I recognized that I pushed them off. And so I just got tired of myself, y'all, to be honest. I got tired of dating. I got tired of trying to figure it out. I got tired of trying to do it myself. And I was so broken and so hurt. I was like, God, I'm done. Like, I just give this part of my life to you, my heart, like the hopes of wanting to be married, the hopes of wanting to be with someone. I was like, Lord, I'm going to stop rebounding, stop all of that. And I mean, it was a tough journey. It wasn't easy. I'm not going to even lie to anybody. But you know what? I really wanted to give that part of myself to the Lord and trust him with that part. And honestly, I was tired of being hurt. I just got to the end of myself and was like, enough is enough. Like, I've been broken over and over and over and over. And I just don't want to stay in this place. And so I really, found myself being unsatisfied in my singleness. And I was like, okay, God, like, you're supposed to be able to fulfill me at every level, like every void. I'm not supposed to look to another human being to be fulfilled. So how do I get to that place of being single and satisfied? And I came to a point of hating being single, y'all. Like, I wasn't dating because I was tired of being hurt. I was just to myself, as some people might call it, a man fast or something like that. I was like, Lord, I'm just gonna focus on me and you, like my career, other things. But I was still struggling. Like, at this point, I'm unsatisfied. And so I just asked God to teach me how to be fulfilled, how to be satisfied. And to be honest, I didn't have other women around me who really were in that same season. A lot of my friends were married, or to be honest, some associates, they were just rebounding. I'm like, I'm not either category, Lord. So show me how to do this. And so I really had to focus first and foremost, y'all, for real, on my relationship with Christ. That is the only thing that kept me, because it was days I wanted to go crazy, I ain't gonna lie, because your flesh is calling you. Like, I wasn't a virgin, so like it was times where I wanted to go out with randoms. I'm lonely, they trying to call me, exes calling me, like all this. I'm like, okay, just say no. Like, just say no. So it was nights where I felt like I'm going to lose my mind. Cause like I'm giving this part up, but my flesh is really craving this. And so it was so many nights where I want to be real, like I had to cry myself to sleep or call my accountability partner. Cause I had one of those to help me out, like, you know, a sister in Christ where I'm like, girl, help me out. Like I'm
Right.
struggling, like I'm about to call him, you know? And then, you know, and it got easier and easier as I went on, but also I got in the word of God, like in his promises, and I got in his presence. And, you know, it may not be popular to some people, but it's sometimes I cry myself to sleep. And the only thing that helped me was worshiping the Lord, like singing praises, putting on my praise music, my worship music, meditating on scriptures. And he just really dealt with my heart. And that's the spiritual side. But to me, there's also a natural side. I had to build a tribe of other positive women in my life to do life with, because we're not meant to do life alone. But that doesn't mean you have to have a man either, you know? And so I really had to build that tribe of other women who are positive, who are godly, to do life with. And I had to really just focus on not worrying about, you know, finding Mr. Right, but becoming Mrs. Right for myself first, not for a man to find me, but self-love. And so I really started to like make like an action plan, y'all. Like, okay, I'm going to focus on my goals. I'm going to come up with some hobbies. I'm going to, you know, have a bucket list now. I'm going to focus on going back to school. Like, what is it do I want to accomplish? And even if for the, like some women who want to be married, even for that, it's like, well, what kind of woman would you want to be if that man of God found you? And I was like focused on becoming that woman. But I got to a place where it was no longer about finding a man. Like I got to a place where it was like, okay, God, I love myself now. Like I've created a life that I love with the help of God. And so I'm not just going to let anybody come into my life and mess that up. And so I had learned my true value and worth. So randoms could come and go. I didn't even care. It was like I had truly found fulfillment and was thriving in my singleness. And that's what made me start the movement, because I was like, man, I'm not the only single woman who was struggling. Like other single women need help and need a tribe to help uplift them. So fast forward, years of being single and satisfied, doing my blog, doing my movement, writing books. And y'all, I was to the point now I was like, oh, well, I guess I'm just going to be single forever. I'm good. Like I'm living my life, you know, I'm just single and satisfied. And then fast forward, y'all, almost a decade. Now don't be discouraged, ladies. It ain't got to take a decade for you, but I was just living my life, doing my thing. Fast forward, and it was like me and my friend at work, you know, we went on a work trip and we took a picture together, and a man, her friend, saw a picture of us on Instagram and inquired about me and asked my friend, you know, is she single? Is she saved? And, you know, the answer was yes and yes. But at this point, like, I wasn't trying to check for a man. Like, so she was like, Shar, oh my God, you know, I have a friend and he's interested in you. And man, like, I never thought about this guy for you, but I think y'all would be perfect. Like his standards are the same as yours. And she's like, but I know you're picky and your standards, you know, but I know he'd be good for you, a good fit. Me, I'm like, whatever. I ain't got time. But I'm like, okay, you know, I'll try it, you know, because I'm thinking it may not work anyway. So, okay, I trust her judgment. She knows how I am. She knows my standards. That's my girl. Okay, I trust her judgment. And so it's like, okay. Well, she was like, but he, you know, feels like he's concerned that you might not want to talk to him because he lives far away. It's long distance. I'm like, how far is far away? She's like, he's in Ohio. At this time I was in Indiana. So he's like, he's in Ohio, 4 hours away. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Not a big deal. We'll just talk. Probably won't work out anyway. So after
okay, wait. I'm sorry. I don't want to cut you off. I want to save that part before we get into there. Because you said a lot of, before we get into, you know, the juice of what happened after that, because you said a lot of good points that I kind of want to go back on. I liked one, how you said that, you know, it wasn't easy, you know, when you were dating and you got to a point where you were like, okay, enough is enough. I tried it my way. It didn't work out. And you said you had an accountability partner, but you didn't really have anybody that was kind of in the same, you know, space that you were in. And I like that. And I think that, especially for a lot of single people, whether you have a lot of single friends and you're single, or if you're single and all your friends are married, it kind of sometimes puts you in different, head spaces, because you're either like, well, everyone's married, woe is me, why am I not? Or you're like, well, you know, my friends are single, so we're just going to go all out and, you know, hang out and, date it, whatever the case may be. And I just like how you said, you know, that that was part of your process, you know, that you had to get to a point where you were tired. And I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of women can probably agree that, you know, sometimes you get to that point where you're like, oh, okay, I tried it, like, you know. Um, but like you said, it was some nights that you know, you didn't sleep well, you know, you were kind of, what do you say to women that kind of are getting to that point or at that point where they're like, okay, you know, enough is enough. And maybe they're saying and they're reading their Bibles and they're
Yeah.
praying, but they still don't see it, you know, like they want to see it or in the time frame that they see it. What would you say to them?
I would definitely say don't give up hope, because I think sometimes we can start to feel hopeless. I've heard that even recently in my Single and Satisfied group that they're seeing no hope. Trust God's word that Psalms 37:4 does tell us that he will give us the desires of our heart. And I would say just keep going. Like, and to know that, you know, obedience to God, or even living pure, even knowing your value and not settling for less or going with randoms just because you're bored, that is going to pay off. That's why for me, I think it's very important to hear testimonies, to listen to other single stories and like testimonies, because it encourages us. But I think you can't do it just one time. I needed it repeatedly, because
Mm-hmm.
discouragement is going to try you every day, probably, you know, no matter what stage you're in your life. And so I would say fill yourself up with these stories, with godly books about marriage, about singleness, about testimonies, because you're going to need to keep hearing it. So stay encouraged, but you're going to keep, yeah, you're going to have to keep encouraging yourself, because the enemy's going to keep bringing distraction and discouragement. But don't give up, because I promise you, as you hear my story more, it is going
Mm-hmm.
to pay off, and you're going to look back, you're going to be like, oh my God, like God has blown my mind. Like all of the pain, all of the so-called shame or whatever you felt, you're going to be like, oh my God, the blessing is so much greater than that time I went through, that you won't even remember, really, unless like now I'm giving my testimony. But all of those times, like I feel like life was over, y'all. Now I'm like, that was just a short little season. I'm living my best life, you know? So
Mm-hmm.
just don't give up and keep going. Yeah.
And not to beat yourself up as well. Like you said, you know, you had exes that would come back around, you know, during times where you were trying to stay focused and, you know, not to beat yourself up. You know, if you reply to a text one day and you're like, oh, I shouldn't have, you know, or, you know, I'm trying to stay focused and not beat yourself up as well.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Even if you
So,
make a mistake, because I wasn't always perfect. There was a season where I
right.
struggled going back and
Mm-hmm.
forth. And it's like, oh man, you know, I keep going back to, like they say, a dog goes back to its vomit. Like, why do you keep doing this to yourself?
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, God still loves you. He's not judging you. Just keep working it out. And before you know it, you're going to get stronger. But also I like what you said about sometimes during different seasons as your friends, you have to get comfortable where you are. And it wasn't comfortable for me, because at first, because everybody, a lot of my friends were married and were starting
Mm-hmm.
families. And I, you know, I was still in my 30s, and I'm like, dang, I don't even have, you know, a boyfriend or anything. But it got to
Mm-hmm.
the point where I had to get comfortable with being alone. Like if I wanted to go to a movie and my girls were busy, I had to get comfortable with taking myself to a movie. I had to get comfortable with doing those things. And it wasn't forever or all the time, but I had to get comfortable in my situation and with myself. And even going to weddings alone and events alone, like I had to be like, it is okay, Sharbria. Like I had to sometimes fight shame or embarrassment. And I just had to speak to it like, there is no shame, there's no embarrassment, because God has somebody for me in his timing. And I had to repeatedly tell myself that, because again, those emotions tried to come. But I had to just keep standing on God's word and keep trusting that this will not forever be my season. So I just had to learn to love the season I was in and max that season out. So
So you had a friend that, you know, suggested a guy for you, you know, after you guys took a picture and, you know, she said, you know, he thinks you may not like him, you know, because of the distance. So
yeah.
let's carry on from there.
Okay, yeah. So she told me 4 hours, and I'm like, okay, whatever. 4 hours is not the end of the world. It might not work out anyway. And so he gave it a few days, and then he asked permission from her to be able to slide in my DM. And then after I approved it, he took a few days, and then, you know, he started asking me questions. He introduced himself, and then started asking me, you know, really meaningful questions about life, what am I into, about God, and things like that. So we kind of got to know each other. Me, I'm not a big person to like to message. Like we messaged for like 3 to 4 hours. I can't do that. Like after a while I'm like, okay, yeah, no, this is too much, my fingers hurt, I can't do all
Right.
that. So he was like, he asked, was it okay, I think after like a day of texting for hours, DMing me for hours, he was like, is it okay for me to text you? And I was like, honestly, you can just call me. I'm not a big text person. Me personally, I feel like you can't really get to know a person through text messages. So I was like, just give me a call. Like, you know, but the conversation was in alignment to interest me to give him my number. And so we talked, and the first day that we actually talked, we talked for like literally probably 5 hours nonstop. And me, again, I'm not even that much of a phone person. It's so funny. It's a shame, but I was gonna be honest. I like more in-person communication. Mm-hmm. And so we talked for forever, but the questions that he asked, the conversation, it was appealing, and not even to my flesh. I'm gonna be real, y'all. It was appealing to my spirit because I had built myself up to be a woman of God. And so the qualities that I was looking for had nothing to do necessarily with a lot of the natural stuff. It was spiritually. And first and foremost, for me, those things, we had to be equally yoked. And that was appealing. And the first question that I asked him was, why should I let you interrupt my life? And I meant that because, yes, he sounded amazing, but so what? I had learned that I was amazing and that I had no time to play, and that I was at a place of wholeness and healing. And so I was fulfilled in my life without a man. So if you're going to come into my life, make sure you're coming to enhance my life and not to take away. And so I was very adamant about that. And so honestly, the conversation grew. And after a week, no, not even after a week, guys, after like 2 days, I found out he was actually 12 hours away, not 4 hours away. My friend didn't know that he had like moved away for a job. Mm-hmm. But at that time, y'all, was like, oh, shoot, I already like him. I always laugh and say that. Yeah, I always say that God tricked me because God knew if I would have known he was that far, I wouldn't have even given him a chance at all. So, but God knows. And I think sometimes too, that we have to be open to something that we're not normally open to. Long distance relationships, I wouldn't have been open to. But I'm so glad that I was, because I feel like God's ways are not our ways, and he wants to wow us and surprise us. And sometimes this is different from what we expect it to be. And so after talking to him for a week, actually he wanted to meet me because he's like, this seems special. I want to know if this is real. So he drove 12 hours to meet me. He stayed like for a week in a nearby town, and we got to know each other, hanging out every day when I got off of work. And honestly, it was amazing. Like, it was an instant, like, spark. And when I say spark, I don't necessarily mean, because sometimes spark can just be like, just your emotion or lust. It wasn't even like that. It was just like, of course, there was an attraction, but that foundation of that spiritual attraction was there first. And I'm glad about that, you know. And so it was just really an amazing story, because it's like, wow, you see me on an Instagram photo. I'm going to be real with y'all. Like, in my very boxing thinking, I would be like, that ain't God. I'd have been like, no, that is not the Lord. You gonna meet me at church or somewhere? No, you don't see me on Instagram. You know, like, because in my mind, I had like this plan of how it should go. And I think as women, we have to let go and let God. Sometimes I know that's hard, but we have to be open to situations that may not seem like that's how we would have planned it. And so, I mean, honestly, from that point, he stayed a week. And to be honest, I knew he was going to be my husband. Like, I just knew, like, when I first met him, I felt such a peace. And I'm normally not like that. I'm really skeptical of people as far as like guys. And I feel like a peace and a godliness about him. And the great thing about it was my friend was able to account for his integrity and his godly character, because she had went to church with him for years and worked in ministry with him. So that was a great help to me to know, like, okay, this is not a facade. He is who he says he is. And so, yeah, you want to interject?
Yeah, because you hitting on so many different points, and I don't want to, you know, be down here writing the whole time, so I can't forget. Yeah. But one thing you said was when he messaged you, he introduced himself. So I'm sure a lot of women can relate. I know specifically for me, I get people in my messages all the time, and I just block right away. You know, of course, if they come into your messages and their first sentence is, hey, baby, or, you know, something like that, you know, that's probably not, unless you go for that type of thing, but you know that it's probably not. But how he approached you in the messages, he did it very gentleman-like, and like you said, introduced himself. So that was sufficient for you.
Yeah.
To kind of
be. It was. I think the way he handled himself was, as far as checking with my friend, was that okay? Is it okay? Like, I could just tell in his approach, he was polite. And even in the DM, he was very polite. And For me, that's important because I am old fashioned where I don't believe chivalry is dead. And I do believe that courting is still alive. I believe that we deserve that. There's nothing wrong with that if we want that kind of behavior. And so for me, yeah, that was important because I understood there was no other way he could have done it since he didn't have my phone number. Yeah.
Right. So I have a question for you. So before you met Lewis and while you were dating, did you have your list of, God, this is what it needs to be? Like it needs to be, because a lot of women are, we get so hung up on that list sometimes. We either may miss out or we don't, our eyes aren't open to possibilities because we have this list.
Yeah.
And if a man comes along, he doesn't fit into it, we're like, oh, that's not God, like you mentioned earlier. Did you have a list of things of what your mate could be or should be? And was Lewis all of those things?
Okay, so as far as the list, before Lewis, I had a list before I met him, but maybe like 5 years, it's so crazy, 5 years before I met him, I didn't have it anymore. You understand what I mean? Like I either lost it or whatever. I wasn't even thinking about marriage anymore. To be honest, it sounds so weird. After I started the movement, I literally thought I was going to be single forever. I just kind of thought like, okay, Lord, maybe this is my calling. Like I enjoy encouraging single women. I have the book, I have the movement. This is what I do. And so I just took it as maybe I'm going to be single. So I hadn't really thought much about the list. However, I don't think it's anything wrong with having a list. I think that it has its place. Like I do a dating with intention course, and I do talk about the list. But what I do say about the list, it's okay to write down your request, but don't get so caught up in the list that you don't let God be God and the Holy Spirit be the Holy Spirit. Because it's so funny, once we started dating or courting, we call it courting, I did write a list. I didn't have it before him, but right when we started courting, I'm like, let me write some stuff down. Like I started trying to write some stuff down. And I always say that I have deal breakers. I have negotiables and non-negotiables. And so to be honest, those non-negotiables, yeah, he is those things. But that's because the non-negotiables are things like I wanted a man who was a Christian. I wanted a man who, and I got a little pickier, but there was some like negotiables. So non-negotiables, he had to be a Christian. He had to have a job. I didn't say he had to make 6 figures or he had to be, like a doctor or drive a Ferrari, but he needed to be able to support himself. For me, that was non-negotiable at the time. And things like I wanted a man that prayed in the Holy Spirit. That was just a preference. I wanted someone who, respected his mom, his family. Family was important to him. Certain things those were non-negotiables, and he had those. But I just feel like those are called standards. You don't have to have a list. You can just say these are my standards and I'm not moving on those. But then I had negotiables, like because I had never been married and had no children, I was like, man, Lord, it would be sweet to like marry someone who had never experienced that before. And because that was just a desire of mine, I wanted someone we could experience that together for the first time. And with children, we could experience that for the first time. However, was that a non-negotiable? No, because I do believe that God could have sent me somebody who had been divorced and he could have been the man of my dreams. So I think when you get that specific, I think you can miss out. You know what I mean? But what I love about God is he doesn't mind like giving you the desires of your heart, the little things. But I think if you get so caught up on that, you're right, you can miss out on God. I think I heard a story of a woman who was like, she wanted a man that was certain feet tall. And then she met somebody who was like short and she didn't want to date him at all. She was like, yeah, no, I'm not giving him time to date. And then she got to meet him like as a friend and talk to him. She ended up falling in love with him. But when she first met him, she's like, he is not my type. That was not my list. So I believe that it's okay to write a list. But man, if you get so caught up in that list, yeah, I think you can miss out. Because I think with us as women, sometimes we can get distracted by the outer. But I think for us, we just want to be loved right. And when you give a man a chance and he loves you right and he loves God, believe me, he's going to be the finest thing to you once you really discover his heart. So yeah, it's okay to have a list, but man, or have your standards, but man, please don't get so stuck on that list, because I've seen it time and time again that you missed out on one of the best men that God could have given you. So
yeah. So let's get back into your story, and then we'll come back to some more questions.
Sure.
So, you gave him a chance, and you guys finally, met in person and got to know each other. So how did that progress from there?
Yeah. So honestly, it progressed really fast. He didn't waste any time. And so once he went back after that week, of course, we were still talking every day. We kind of knew it was official already just because how we were talking, but he did make it official. But so since he was 12 hours away, we had to travel back and forth, which was kind of crazy. I had never done that before. So I would say we would see each other like once a month. And so I would fly out there most of the time because with his career, he just couldn't do it. His really busy job. My job was more flexible. I had nights and weekends off. And to be honest, I love to travel. So I was like, yeah, send for me. Send me there. Like, I'm down for it. I love to go, you know. And so that's what we did. And so that was like August when we met. And then I went down there for like Labor Day weekend. And then I went for my birthday weekend, which is October 1st. And then so after that, it progressed. My birthday weekend, he asked me to make it official, you know, officially be his or whatever. And it's so funny because I was like, I already was, I thought. It was so funny. He's like, girl. I was like, I was like, this is how I felt. If I put you on social media, we're married. Like, I'm not just putting
you know how we go. You know how we do.
Because I had never put a man on social media because I'm like, I just, you know, I'm just not like that. There's nothing wrong with it, but I was very private at one point in time. Now I'm like an open book, but I was so private at the time. And so, but for him, it was so important, you know, to put that we were in a relationship. So I'm like, okay, but in my heart, I'm like, this is serious. So, you know, so we were official and in October, and it was very nice. So that's when I would say he courted me. Like, you know, I say wine and dine, but we didn't drink. We don't drink. But so he like took me out nice places, even fun little places like arcades. Like we just like two teens having fun, getting to know each other, pure fun. We kept it clean, you know, and just enjoyed each other. And so then back and forth we would go. And so my birthday, I went down there in October. Then I went back there the end of October. So it went from 1 month to 2 months, twice a month. We were like, okay, this once a month is not working, which became very expensive, by the way. Like, because sometimes we would do last minute tickets because we were like, man, I just missed you. Like, okay, I'll get you a ticket now, you know? And so that went on for a while. And then Christmas, he came to meet the family. He came home to Chicago. And both of our families live in Chicago area. So that was great. So when he came home, he could see his family. So I met his family. They were awesome. He met my family. But my family, I'm going to be real. They loved him. But before he came, they were skeptical because I had not dated in so many years. And to them, they're like, wait a minute, you're this Miss Single and Satisfied. I don't need a man to, who's he? You know, so they were a little bit, you know, nervous for me. But having a relationship with God and Holy Spirit, man, that trumps everything. Like having that inner peace, listening to the voice of God, keeping things clean. So, because sex, y'all, clouds your judgment. I'm just going to keep it real. I was like, I ain't doing that again because, first of all, I wanted to wait until I was married. So I wanted to honor God in that. And also, I know from experience how much it clouds your mind and your judgment. And I was like, you know, this got to be God's way. And so by doing that, I was able to think clearly, you know, and I was able to see warning signs. I was able to see, you know, good things, and nobody's perfect. So I saw some stuff about him. He saw some stuff about me. But the key is to ask yourself, if this never changes, can I live with this? And I asked myself some tough questions, and he did too. And so after that, fast forward past the holidays, I was telling everybody it was serious that we were, you know, thinking about marriage. Because y'all, we started marriage counseling like before he even proposed. Okay. We knew we wanted to be together. We had the marriage conversation, and we said we would like to have marriage counseling before because we don't want to be engaged and get through the counseling and be like, oh, this ain't it. We were like, no. And I had been engaged before. I told y'all how it worked out. So it was like, when you put a ring on this finger, we're going through like, and he felt the same way. We wanted help to navigate us through the courting process, how to do it God's way. And I'm so glad we did. So we talked to our pastors. His pastors led us in our premarital counseling before he proposed. And people were a little confused. They were like, what are y'all doing? But we felt led to do it that way. And we gained so much wisdom and insight. So he proposed a few months later, on his birthday, actually. I thought I was surprising him to come surprise him. And then he proposed to me. And so, y'all, it was fast. So he proposed to me 6 months after he met me. And we married the same day a year later that he came to meet me in person. And so some people, they're like, that is crazy. Like, you meet on Instagram, you have a long distance relationship. He proposes after 6 months. You're married within a year. Like, how's it going? Y'all, it's great. Why? Because when God puts something together, he makes no mistakes. Does that mean he's perfect? Heck no. Does that mean I'm perfect? Y'all, absolutely not. We have a lot to learn about marriage, and we're growing in that. But we know that we're lifers. Like, we've made a very calculated, spiritual, you know, and very sober decision. And it was the best decision other than giving my life to Christ that I've ever made. And to me, letting God write your love story, y'all, it was so effortless. I didn't try to do anything. I wasn't checking for a man, and the relationship was really easy, even in the courtship. Like, it was a beautiful experience. There was excitement there was romance, there was passion, and there was no sex. So you don't need that to have passion. There was friendship, there was fun, there was excitement. And God did that. It was nothing that I could do to try to manufacture that. Now, in the past, I tried to manufacture it. Got me all kind of trouble or with randoms.
That's not uncommon. I've heard quite a few people, and I'm big on listening to love stories. I'm a hopeless romantic myself.
No, you're a hopeful romantic.
Listen, Shabria, look, correct me. But I've heard a couple different people say, one, that they've had counseling before they were engaged. So I think that's a good move to do, especially when, you know, you get to a certain place. It seems like you both were, and you both were kind of, you know, in the mindset of, hey, I know what I want, and I'm going to do, you know, I'm going to take it seriously.
Yeah.
I'm going to do what I need to do to eventually make you my wife, because you guys were dating with purpose. It wasn't dating with purpose and courting, you know, for purpose. So I can understand, you know, you guys doing that. And then the fact that you said it happened quickly. I've been hearing a lot more of those type of, you know, engagement stories. Like, hey, we were, you know, we started talking, and 3 months later we were engaged and we married. You know, I think I watched the docu series for Black Love. I don't know if you're familiar with that, and I just love Cody and her husband. But they dated and got married quick too. And she always talks about how they went and they knew, you know, and they knew what they wanted, and they were going to do what they needed to do to come together. So that's not uncommon. It seems to be these days.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you. So you had your list. Had a list, started the list. Did Lewis have a list?
Yes, but I don't think that he actually wrote it down. I think he said he had it like internally. So he had non-negotiables, absolutely, because he had dated as well. And so he knew what he wanted. And I think that's probably also why it went fast. We were older. Like, he was knocking 40. I was like mid-30s. We knew what we wanted. We knew what we didn't want. So it wasn't like we were 18 and like, we're about to marry, you know, 6 months.
Right.
But yeah, he did. And his list actually looked a lot like mine, which is hilarious. But it was non-negotiables. Like, he said he wanted a woman who, obviously, God was first in her life. He wanted somebody who didn't have randoms around her. So he likes that I was hidden. I used to hate it. I used to be like, I felt so hidden when I was single. And he's like, no, I love that. Like, he didn't want me to have like a bunch of situationships going on. But also he wanted somebody who believed in the Holy Spirit and spoke in tongues as well. But he also said that he likes that I had a life, and he said I had a lot going for myself. And so he understood that everybody isn't in a place where they are like, I know my purpose, or I know, you know, what I want to do. But he said, if you're pursuing God and pursuing something, he said that was attractive. And don't be real, y'all. I was pursuing some of everything when I met him. Like, I was blogging. I had like a monthly Bible study. I had a blog. I said blog. Yeah, I was in ministry at the time in my church, and I had just finished school. And so I was very ambitious. And for him, that was like a plus for him. But those were like the major things. Same as mine. And then he had little things that it's so funny. And I say this not to like toot my own horn, but I say this to just attest to like how great God is and how he does care about the little things. There are little things that might seem really insignificant that God honored, that Lewis prayed for. Like, there was little things like he wanted somebody who was into like fitness or like something like that. And then he also wanted someone who had colored eyes, and he also wanted someone who sang. And I'm like, what? God gave you all your little requests? Like, I'm like, I'm coming like jealous.
Especially when you just talked about not getting everything, you know, on your list.
I was like, wait, hold on, Lord, excuse me. You know, but I feel like that's amazing, because Lewis had been told that, like, it's sad, but people had told him that you can't get both. You can't get a woman that you're attracted to and a true woman of God. He was told that. And I'm like, why would God want to give you somebody you're not attracted to? I don't believe that. I think attraction is important. I don't necessarily think that should trump the spiritual, but God wants you to be attracted to who you're marrying, even if the attraction comes later. Because I just did a love series on my podcast, and one woman said she was not attracted to her husband. Like, he was gross to her for years. And then she said one day, like, the light bulb just like opened, and she was starting to notice him, like his body and his face. And she was like, whoa, where has he been all this time? But like, attraction is important. So when I saw like God answer his prayers, that touched my heart. And he said that touched his heart, because God cares so much about us. He cares about our desires, and he wants us to be pleased. I don't know why we think God doesn't want us to be happy and pleased. Like, he's just some big bad father that doesn't want to make what humanly father that's a good father doesn't want to please their children, don't want to see them happy. And so yeah, he had a list and he got his list, but we didn't get every single thing on the list, because as humans we could be like very anal, like I want a man who cooks every day, and I don't do like but be patient with the process, because some things will develop over time. Like when I met him, he didn't cook at all, and we've only been married like 9 months, and y'all, he started to cook out the blue. Hallelujah. Some things develop. Or like, I'm involved with music, and I honestly desired a husband that was involved in music. He wasn't when I met him, but now he's like starting to get involved. And so it's like, you can't have perfection overnight. Marriage takes work and takes time. So some of those things that you desire on your list, you're going to be the one to help develop them. And then vice versa. You guys are going to help develop each other. Now, that don't mean have that social worker mentality where you're like, I'm going to build a man. No, sweetie, only God can do that. But like, it's okay to see the potential and say, okay, we're going to build a life together. So, yeah.
That's good. That's good. So then let's fast forward a little bit and then kind of get into because like you said, you haven't been married a year yet. You had this beautiful wedding and a very fun reception. So now, you guys have been married, you're still continuing to learn each other. And then you get to the point where, the world is under a, a crisis.
Yeah.
And that's a big obstacle that you guys, not that you didn't have other, things to work through before that, but this is something you couldn't have foreseen.
Yeah.
How do you guys navigate, work together? And you can lead up to, from marriage to now if you need to, but just how did you navigate your marriage up until this point?
Okay. So as soon as we got married, so go from when we got married to now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So like you said, we had our wedding, and then we had our wedding, but I went through a huge life change because of course he lived 12 hours away, and he had a very dominant career. And so for me, I quit my job, which I had been there for 7 years, and I moved 12 hours away, and like home, my family, everything. I've never moved away. So that was a huge transition, leaving my job, leaving my family, leaving my home. And so going there, but I was excited. I'm gonna be real. I was ready for something new. So that was exciting. That was cool. We moved to Charlotte. That was fun. But things shifted so quickly. Like when we first got married, like so much fun. Everything was awesome. Just exploring Charlotte, a new place. And then we decided to leave his career and go into entrepreneurship, which, that's a whole different thing right there, doing that early in the marriage. And we're still obviously getting to know each other, but like the beginning was great. But I really was navigating through the emotions of, I'm such a go-getter. I'm so used to being busy all the time too. I wasn't really as busy. I mean, I was now a stay-at-home wife, and I had never, done that or been at home any time in my life. So I'm like, oh Lord, help me. So it was really fun at first, but after a while I'm like, okay, I need to get back busy. But as he was doing that, he switched entrepreneurship. We started working together, and we actually ended up moving back to the Chicago area. So we had a whole bunch of transitions, y'all, within like 4 or 5 months. Like, you get married, you move, you quit your job. Okay, we do this. Now we're entrepreneurs. Okay, we do this. Now I started acting again, getting jobs in that genre. Then we moved back to the Chicago area. But it was an adventure, to say the least. And all of that was fun. And we were still getting to know each other, still are. And so now going from all of that to we're coming back to Chicago, excited now because we're going to be back with our friends and our family. And we have these new jobs that we're looking towards. And then COVID hits. And then it's like everything shut down. All the jobs that we were coming to do, they shut down, but thank God we have family here and friends. So that was cool. But navigating through it was very different because now it's like life's very different from what I expected to be, because you're thinking you're coming home to relief, to family, to friends now, all this excitement, because it wasn't as much going on back where we moved from, because we didn't have friends and family there. And so now, like you said, we're stuck in the house, type of a deal. But honestly, can I be real? We're navigating really well. Some things that I have to do for my mental health, just being real, is I have to get out and get fresh air. So we didn't have much structure at first. So we're now trying to get structure, because I have to feel like I'm doing something. It's so fun. I always have to feel like I'm being productive. And my husband's like, just relax, just rest. I'm like, I can't rest. I have to be productive. I got to do something, and I'm such a creative. So I'm like, I got to write 10 books, or I got to, like, I have to keep moving. So what we've done is we're trying, and we're doing better at it every day, is getting a schedule and putting in our calendars together. And so we make sure we work out. We work out more, and we work out together. Obviously, we can't go to a gym, so we're doing like the little partner workouts. So we're making sure that we do that. We're cooking more, which I already cooked anyways at home all the time. But now he's cooking, and he's trying to be like a little chef with like recipes. So we're trying to do things that are fun. We have movie nights, so that kind of sparks it up. And then try to think of other stuff we do. Okay, so like as date days, we go to the park, we walk around, we jog together. So for the most part, our sanity has been like getting fresh air, taking long drives. And then honestly too, getting time alone. Like that's just as important as spending that quality time. I'm a person, I love quality time with my husband, but I'm also a person, and I think he is too, we need personal time. Like I go away and I go read a book, or I go watch my little show that I like, and then he calls his friends, talks to his friends, or he goes and reads a book or watch a documentary. But we definitely are very close-knit, and we definitely do spend most of the time together doing stuff, because we like a lot of the same things. So we try to have fun. And also, I'm a dancer. He likes to learn some dances. So we try to be fun and do little dances too. But I think it's just being creative. And we're going to have to, if this thing doesn't, lift, we're going to just have to find more creative ways to live life. That's for everybody, because, I'm a highly active person. And I'm going to be honest, I don't like to just be stuck. I'm sure a lot of people don't. And so it's like, what do you do? Now you got to have date nights where it's like shooting Zumba night or something, dancing Zumba, or kind of like dinner at home, or hiking around the corner. It's like, what do you do? Or take a long drive, pretend you're going on vacation. But honestly, it's been great. Some people say like they've been like arguing like cats and dogs. That has not been us at all. We have disagreements, but they're not arguments. Like they're just disagreements that we would have had if COVID wasn't happening. So yeah.
And that's good that, you have this hurdle to kind of navigate together, to kind of see how you guys, react to what's going on and how you deal with it. And you get to do that together instead of, maybe if you guys were still in the courting stage and he was 12 hours away and, you don't really know fully how he's dealing with it because you're not in the same space. So that is good. So I have a couple more questions. We have about a little less than 15 minutes. So while I ask these questions to Shabria, if anyone has any questions about her story or just questions to get her perspective on relationships, then please put those in the comment box. I do want to talk about dating with purpose.
Okay.
I know I've been guilty of this myself, and a lot of people I know years ago. Sometimes you don't, especially in relationships, you don't always consider dating specifically with the purpose to actually get married. You may want to get married, and then you find somebody and you're dating. You're like, oh, I can see myself with him, but you don't go into it, intentionally saying, okay, since I want to get married, then I'm going to date purposely, and I'm going to do certain actions to, to line up with what I want. Just like if it was a business you wanted to open, there would be certain steps you would take to make that come to fruition. And I know a lot of us don't necessarily date to actually, get that. If it comes, we're happy, but talk about dating with purpose a little bit.
Yeah. Because actually I was kind of the opposite. I was dating with purpose for me, because I told you, like, I got to the point where I was like, what's the point in getting in another relationship with somebody who doesn't have the qualities that to me seemed like a man who I would marry? Because it just ended up in disappointment and hurt. And like you said too, sometimes you can meet someone that it seems promising and it still doesn't work out. I mean, we can't control that part, but I definitely dated on purpose and with purpose. Like when I met Lewis, and that was the reason before Lewis why I was still single, because the guys that came, I was like, yeah, no. And it's kind of like what you said, guys sliding your DM all the time, but you can tell. I mean, first of all, if you're a woman to guy, you have discernment, and then common sense too. I mean, you know, certain things like, hey, baby, how you doing? Yeah, no, that's not a man that I want, you know, in my life. Now, if you were at that level where you can call me baby, okay, but like, you just meeting me, I'm not your baby, you know? And so you can kind of, you know, tell, you know, that that is not a person that, you know, is going to be for you, you know, marriage material. And so that it was another reason why I'm single, because guys would come and I'm like, yeah, no. And then when I met Lewis, like the qualities that, you know, my friend had told me about him. And of course, I'm gonna be real. Like I stalked his Instagram, I stalked his Facebook, friends he knew. I mean, I went back to the point I found ex-girlfriends. I mean, I did my investigation work. I'm gonna be honest, because I'm like, this is somebody who's trying to get to know me. I need to know as much about him as possible. And then I also pray, like, Holy Spirit, show me his intentions towards me. Reveal things that, you know, maybe he's not comfortable with sharing. And thank God he's an extremely honest person. So it was no like dark secrets or anything like that. But I still ask the Holy Spirit, reveal things to me that I need to know before I pursue this relationship. Or I should say, allow him to pursue me. And so, yeah, when I met him, once I saw certain qualities line up, I'm like, okay, this is someone that I can court. Because yes, I can see godly qualities and natural qualities that I would want in a future husband. So that doesn't mean that it would have necessarily worked out that we were going to get married, but at least I'm dating with purpose and with intention, that this is my intention to be a wife, not just to be a girlfriend for 30 years. And God knows what. Yeah.
I think that's a good point too, that you just said that you went into it because you saw qualities. So you made up in your mind to date with purpose, even if it didn't, you know, necessarily result in marriage. That was, you know, you had a goal.
Yeah.
So I know sometimes we may get into situations, and if it doesn't lead to marriage, if that's what we want, then we're like, oh, it's a failure. It may not necessarily be a failure. It's just something you had to go through, learn from. Maybe you need to get some things out of it, you know, to grow yourself so you can be somebody's wife. I want to talk about quickly before we talk about a little bit more of the things that you're doing before they cut us off. Let's talk about healing. You know, a lot of people may have experienced heartbreak, have what they call baggage that they don't necessarily know how to kind of let go of before they enter new relationships, and then they bring it into the next relationship.
Yeah.
Can you tell us briefly, can you talk about that briefly, and how you, like you said, you went through some relationships, you were engaged before, that didn't work out. How did you kind of leave that behind so you could be, besides you getting tired, you know, being tired, how did you make sure you were healed to be in another relationship?
I think the biggest thing is that I had to recognize that rebounding would only further hurt me, because I was a rebounder. And so once I gave myself time, because first of all, you got to give yourself time to heal. And a lot of times we don't do that. We just want to jump into something new. So I gave myself time to heal. But yeah, instead of running to like my exes or that random guy that wants to, you know, call me or me go out with, I spent that time with God. And for real, like people say, oh, for real? I'm like, no, for real, for real. I really did. Like I made sure that I was in his word. I made sure that I meditated scriptures. I made sure I was in Bible studies, women's groups. Like I just had to really saturate myself with that. And also natural things as well. Like I said, I joined the gym. I made sure I was around other women. You know, I made sure I was in women's groups doing fun stuff, traveling, like giving myself just wholeness and giving myself an identity of my own that didn't have to be within a man or having a man or my relationship status. So as far as like letting go of those things, sometimes those things may try to plague you, but you can't give into some of those things. For example, I did not want to make my husband pay for the things of my ex, the one that I was engaged to. And I could have done that because he was very deceitful. And so I could have brought that into my marriage and, you know, not trust my husband. He's very trustworthy. And the enemy tried to bring that up even after that healing process. but I had to know the word. And I'd say, you know what? I'm not going to make this man suffer for something he's not even done. He's a good man. So, and sometimes we can ruin a great thing because, like you said, we haven't healed. And just because something tries to come back up in your relationship, that doesn't necessarily mean you haven't healed. The enemy is always going to try to bring certain things back up to make you think you're not healed, but you have to deal with it with the word and just not give into it. Just resist the enemy. He's going to flee, and submit to God. So.
So let's talk about, you have a lot of wonderful things going on. Can you tell us about more about the book and the workbook and your music and the podcast?
Awesome. Yes. So the Single and Satisfied movement, as you guys know, is my Facebook ministry for single women. But out of that was birthed my book, Single and Satisfied, The Single Woman's Guide to Fulfillment. And so that pretty much talks about a lot of what we talk about, but even more and in more in detail, like my healing process, the journey of a loveaholic, how I was just so addicted to love, being a hopeless romantic. It talks about how the situations from our past and even our childhood impacts how we love today or how we don't love today. I talk about bitterness, trust issues, loneliness, sex, purity. Talk about the things that we run to when we're lonely, whether that's porn, masturbation, whatever. I talk about all those things as well. And I talk about how the road to restoration, how to heal, how to get deliverance, and then how to find fulfillment spiritually, but naturally so as well, because both are just as important, spiritually first. But then I also think it's so important to build a fun life for yourself, a fulfilling life for yourself. And so I talk about all of those things and more in the book. And then the workbook, it is to accompany the book. Chapter by chapter, I pull out nuggets of truth. There are prayers, worksheets, activities, scriptures, just to really help you to get deliverance, get healing, get fulfillment, to walk you through the process of becoming single and satisfied. So that's the book and the workbook. And they can get that at sharpria.com. Yeah.
Awesome. I pinned a few of her pages. I've been having trouble. I had trouble in the other live earlier this week too about pinning when I try to add the website. So I have to figure out why it does that. But Shabria Shine is her brand IG page, Shabria Music. Max Out Girl is the podcast. She's also on Facebook. And tonight, if you are single and you want to have some tools to help you stay single and satisfied, to prepare for marriage or for dating, for courting, if that's your desire, we are giving away her book and workbook to one single woman on the live. So to do that, you have to go to the last post that is on the Fierce Unapologetically page, comment under the post, the last post with her flyer in it. I posted one not too long before the live started, and say, great conversation. And then DM Fierce rather, which comes to me, and let me know how she met her husband. Just put in there how she met her husband. I want to see if you were listening. So we'll pull from there and we'll see what we get. So that was a great conversation. Some very good points about dating with purpose, about healing, about having standards and non-negotiables, but still being open, not blocking God from what he needs to do. About healing and focusing on yourself while you are single, kind of embracing the word and praying and just being purposeful in everything that you do. Do you have any ending encouragement for the ladies and men that may be on the live tonight and who will listen to this later?
Absolutely. As I said earlier, just do not give up. Trust God that he will give you the desires of your heart. And if that is marriage, he has that for you. But don't give in. Do not settle for less. Keep your standards. Keep trusting God. Keep holding on. It's going to happen. But in the meantime, don't worry about becoming Mrs. Right for a man. Become Mrs. Right for yourself and for God first and foremost. Enjoy your life. Max out, ladies. And
yes. Yes, and gentlemen. So guys, make sure you listen to her podcast too. She has some very good conversations. I always tune in with other women sharing their stories, their love stories, some divorce stories, just different perspectives on relationships and dating. So just make sure you follow her podcast and follow her on her social media as well. She's bright and energetic and has some great stories and resources for women and men and for all of us. So thank you, Sharbria, for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me on. This was so awesome. Thank you.
No problem. So yes, you gave me some insight too, so I'll take away from that as well.
Awesome.
So continue to be fierce. And for everybody else, thanks for joining in. Make sure your notifications are on so you can continue to see when we are going live. And make sure you go to the Fierce website because we have the Stay Fierce, Stay Home, and Protect Your Purpose tee still available for a limited time. So you can represent who you with with us. So thank you, everybody, and I will see you on the next live. Thank you, Sharbria.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Good night. Bye, Lewis. Bye.